Hey, Jim Dunaway from the next round. We're ready to relive the weekend in Southeastern Conference football with our friends at Cowin Equipment. We're fired up for another year. Before we look back, though, let me remind you, our friends at Cowin Equipment would love the opportunity to partner with your company for your heavy equipment needs. Visit Cowin.com to find out more about how Cowin can be your heavy equipment solution, from rental and new equipment sales to great service and parts. Check out Cowin Equipment's rental fleet hit list for a wide range of well-maintained equipment from their rental fleet for sale right now. Go to the website, Cowin.com, Cowin.com. Now let's talk a little football.
Let's start off with the biggest takeaway of the weekend was what South Carolina did to Tennessee, right? That's the big takeaway, because that impacted the college football playoffs. Shane Beamer is the first FBS coach since 1978 in the split of FBS-FCS to win twice by 20 or more points as a 20-point underdog. He did it last year against Florida, and he did it this year against Tennessee. Twice now, he has beaten perceived power in the East as a 20 or more point underdog by 20 or more points.
I mean, that Florida team was bad enough to get their coach fired last year, so that one you can kind of flush. This was a team that was in the college football playoff until Saturday night.
Yeah.
Tennessee was not missing the college football playoff. They were all in.
You know, they were not, Brown, and especially the way the day had gone. It was a great morning for Tennessee fans, because TCU had to do a fire drill to win.
Right.
And Michigan trailed in the fourth quarter and had to get a late field goal to win against Illinois. Michigan and TCU look like that they both could not be ahead of Tennessee. There was going to be a spot for Tennessee
absolutely.
if they just beat South Carolina and Vandy.
All they had to do was win games. Yep. All they had to do was win games, and they are in this thing.
Because just eye test going into the night, Tennessee looked better than a TCU team, obviously that would have lost one and still won the Big 12, or a Michigan loser to Ohio State. They looked like they would hold one of the spots.
Yep. I mean, it was set up perfectly for them. That's all they had to do, is just win the game. I don't even know. I think we're to the point now where they might not even have needed style points against South Carolina. If they win that game by 10 or 12 points, I think everybody will look at it and say, yeah, tough road game, SEC, Tennessee wins again, move on. They got Vandy, they're in this thing. It was set up so perfectly for Tennessee, and they just completely, whatted down their leg. I mean, that's the only way you could say it, a complete, total choke job by Tennessee, and just incredible game by South Carolina.
First, Shane Beamer, his reaction to this game. Shane Beamer, the coach of South Carolina, on his team getting the big win over Tennessee and knocking the Volunteers out of the college football playoffs.
For those guys to not listen to anyone on the outside. We talked on Tuesday morning too, no disrespect, that you guys don't get to write the story of this football team. Like, every single person in here, I think, thought they knew how this game was going to go. Every person in here thought, well, we've seen this story before, how Carolina's going to finish. And it's a new Carolina, guys. You don't get to write the story. We write the story, and that's what we talked to our team about on Tuesday morning. They write the story of how this thing's going to finish. Everybody thinks they've seen this, read this book, seen this movie. They know how the chapter ends. Well, no, you don't, because I know what that team's about in that locker room, and so proud of them and so happy for them as well.
Make this make sense. South Carolina loses to Florida 38-6. Florida follows that up by going to Nashville and loses to Vanderbilt 31-24. South Carolina follows it up, beating Tennessee 63-38.
Yeah.
Make that one make sense.
Right. And Vandy, who won at Kentucky more convincingly, really, than Georgia, who's the best team in the country, did at Kentucky this week.
That's a great point.
You can't.
Make any of this make sense.
You cannot connect the dots in college football.
You really can't.
It's every given Saturday.
Yeah, it makes that really makes no sense when you put it in terms that all of that happened in a 2-week period. That South Carolina got blown out by Florida, who turned around and lost to Vandy's second conference win of the year, and then South Carolina turns out and beats a team that's in the college football playoff. I mean, it just not only beats them, runs them out of Williams-Brice Stadium, embarrasses them on completely undresses them on national TV. It really makes no sense. I mean, you just cannot make this make any sense. What happened Saturday?
The day was set up for Tennessee to cruise into the playoff just with wins over South Carolina and Vandy. They were going to be in the playoffs. And then all of a sudden, in the blink of an eye, it's gone.
For us in this program, this one needs to hurt on the way back and needs to hurt the guys that aren't on this trip that will be in our building tomorrow afternoon and be there on Monday. For us to grow as a program, you got to look at this opportunity and, understand, what happened and let it hurt and remember that as you move forward and let it help you grow.
So a blowout win by Arkansas over Ole Miss. Rocket Sanders, 232 yards, 3 touchdowns. It's 35-6 at the half. A little cosmetic surgery on the scoreboard in the second half, and it's 42-27 at the end. But this game was never close for Ole Miss, and Lane Kiffin gets asked the question afterwards.
The reports out there that you're Auburn's #1 target. I know that's a lot of noise, but what does the future hold for you? What does the future hold for Ole Miss?
Yeah, fair question. Like I said, I love being here. I don't want to look to next year already with a regular season game, but this is not one of those years where you say, oh, we're going to lose all these guys. There's a lot of people coming back, and a lot of new guys offensively especially. So very excited about the future. So I don't know all that stuff out there, #1 and stuff. Maybe they watched the first half and wouldn't be #1 anymore.
So, I mean, as far as answering the question, he did a pretty good job with it.
Well, he answered a question the way you would answer it if you haven't signed anything at Auburn, you haven't, you're not ready for that to come out yet. And if you want to keep leverage in both places, you want to keep it alive at Ole Miss in case, for whatever reason, it doesn't work out with Auburn. I decide not to go. They decide they don't want me. And I got to go back to Ole Miss and get the absolute best I can out of this leverage, which, the Richard Cross reports are still out there about the offer. Or you keep your leverage alive with Auburn in case there's one more thing I want to get that Jimmy Sexton's trying to get out of them. I'm not going to publicly comment and make Auburn look like they've already won me. I got to get everything I want out of this deal. You only get one shot at this. So that's what that statement sounded like, a guy that's really trying to keep both sides alive. There was nothing he said in there that makes me think he's not going to Auburn, or nothing he said in there that makes me think he wants to stay at Ole Miss. I think that's the way you have to answer that question.
Here's Carnell getting asked about the Auburn head coaching job, and does he consider himself a candidate to be the permanent head coach?
My main app gave me so much confidence to do this job where I go from the first week to being a scared puppy to watching my guys, each guys come out of the office and say, Coach, we believe in you. Coach, we so happy. To giving me that confidence, man, that along with this staff, the support of the Auburn family, the fans, wow. I'm sure you guys are going to get the next coach. I don't know. Really don't care. My seat don't dictate my service. Auburn is special. Those kids are special. It's a lot of people that took a chance on me and poured into my life. It gave me hope when I was hopeless. So again, my seat don't dictate my service.
Yeah, I like that saying, by the way. My seat don't dictate my service. He's doing it for the Auburn players and for the school he loves. Most people don't think he's in the mix to be the head coach down at Auburn right now.
Yeah, I mean, it really doesn't look that way, no. It looks like they've obviously centered on Lane Kiffin, and they've got some legitimate fallbacks like Hugh Freeze, who would take the job tomorrow if offered. And the truth is, Carnell Williams has done some nice things. He shed a nice light on Auburn here in some pretty dark times this season. He's 2-1. He's injected some enthusiasm. His only loss is a road overtime loss to a conference team. He's about to coach an Iron Bowl. Who knows what happens there? I don't want to think happens, but you never know. I mean, he's done everything right. There's nothing you would look at Carnell Williams and say, I wish he did it a different way. He's been who he's been. He is who he is. He hasn't tried to fake it and be somebody else.
As a guy who just watched South Carolina beat Tennessee, home field matters a lot in college football.
It does.
But I tell you this, Auburn's got a better chance of beating Alabama with that guy as the head coach doing what they're doing right now than when Brian Harsin was the head coach.
Well, I think if Brian Harsin were still there, it would be obvious that the time was coming to an end. You would have a demoralized team. There would be no enthusiasm. Alabama would win this game 42-0. Alabama may still win this game 42-0. I don't know. I feel better about Auburn being more competitive with Carnell Williams than I did with Brian Harsin.
Interesting what this Iron Bowl is, and if I say this, a win means virtually nothing for Alabama. Big picture, other than a win over your rival.
I mean, for whatever this is worth, a win probably has you in New Year's Six bowl contention, and a loss probably knocks you out of that.
Yeah,
for whatever that's worth.
Another 10-win season.
Yep.
But
a win over your arch rival.
But where Alabama is right now, there's a lot more on the line. I mean, think about if Auburn shocks the world and wins this game as 3 touchdown underdogs, what Carnell Williams has done, that becomes its own story. And then whoever the next coach is, maybe it's named even before the Iron Bowl. You'd hate to take away from Carnell's one shot in the Iron Bowl to make that announcement Friday or Thursday night, but it's a possibility.
There is a certain coach who doesn't have a game Friday.
Right, exactly. If it's Lane Kiffin, I mean, that may come out Thursday night, Friday. Maybe he may be in Tuscaloosa. Who knows if it's Lane Kiffin? But if somehow Auburn is able to shock the world and pull the upset, and now you're naming this coach in, and now you've got some a couple of big recruits still out there in the state. There's a little momentum there that Auburn could carry into the offseason.
Yeah, maybe.
So there's a lot more on the line, I believe, for Auburn than there is for Alabama.
I would agree with that. Yeah.
You don't agree with that?
I don't.
I just don't. I mean, this is always when Auburn is in Tuscaloosa, it seems like there is more to lose than to gain for Alabama.
Yeah, I mean, the reason I just – and I know what you're saying about Alabama. Normally they're trying to protect a spot in the college football playoff in this game, and they don't have that. But I just don't see – I really don't see what's on the line for Auburn that's any different than Alabama. I don't want to say this because I love this game, but there's less on the line in this game than almost the last 15 years.
Yeah, I guess that's what I was trying to say.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like there's a lot on the line in this game.
Outside of you want to beat your rival, which, by the way, that's the way most of these rivalry games go. So, I mean, we've been blessed in this state, and we've gotten used to the fact that this game has at least one team an impact on the college football playoff, and it's not going to this year.
Obviously, it'd be huge for Clark Lee and Vanderbilt because they have, he's trying to build something that's trending with 2 SEC wins. They went 3 years without an SEC win. Now they've gone back-to-back weeks. Rockstar cut 11. Clark Lee, now he talked about a new era of Vanderbilt football back at SEC Media Days in July. We were there in Atlanta.
And we ignored it and laughed at it.
But there's, they passed the Vegas win total in September. So you cash that ticket. And now late in the year, they have carried this over with wins on the road at Kentucky, who has spent a lot of time in the top 25 this year. And then at home to Florida this past weekend, who beat Utah and has had some nice wins this year, including drilling South Carolina the week before, who just annihilated Tennessee. So 2 quality wins for Vanderbilt. And I will tell you that 3 years without an SEC win is a long time to get them in back-to-back weeks. And they've done this with Mike Wright, who wasn't – he'd lost the starting job, wasn't the permanent starter at quarterback. So they were without their starter. A.J. Swan was out. So Mike Wright's back in there playing. And they are able to do this because they've developed a running game. Ray Davis has gone over 100 yards for 3 straight games. And they play a Tennessee team this week.
Down a quarterback.
That's down a quarterback and emotionally shipwrecked.
Yeah, and you don't have the same roster as South Carolina, though Vandy, it's probably not as far off as some gaps would be. But Clark Lee's a defensive guy, and all of a sudden, that South Carolina defense maybe showed them a little bit on, they've at least gotten to watch Georgia now. They don't have anywhere close to Georgia's defensive personnel, but they've at least gotten to watch what Georgia and South Carolina did that gave Tennessee problems.
Yeah, and now Hendon Hooker's out, and Joe Milton's got to find his accuracy. Now, Milton's the quarterback of the future, most people think, at Tennessee.
Either he or Iamaleava, yeah.
Yeah, so it's a free look at Milton for Tennessee fans.
It is, but now the other side of this, too, is, and we have mentioned this, every single quarterback other than Will Levis that plays Tennessee has a career day, every one of them. So you wonder if that carries over for Vandy. I mean, you go look at every quarterback Vandy's faced. It's been one of the biggest days they've had all season, or excuse me, Tennessee's faced. That quarterback has had one of the biggest days they've had all season long.
Clark Lee, after this win this past weekend, it comes at home, back-to-back SEC wins, what it means for Vandy and maybe a bowl game for them.
I can't say enough about this being a new era in Vanderbilt football, this being a point that we'll look back on and see where the shift happened. And that does not mean we've arrived. This is another step in our journey, but we're starting to see what's possible here, and with continued effort and continued support, we feel like we have great things ahead as a program.
We'll have some poll questions going out later on, presented by Cowin Equipment. They have partnered with us here on the next round on our new venture. They want to partner with you for your heavy equipment needs. Cowin.com gives you more information about how they can be your heavy equipment solution and rental and equipment sales partner, and their superior service and parts department, great as well, at Cowin Equipment, Cowin.com.